Welcome to Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
Happy Thirsty Thursday, folks.
Happy Thirsty Thursday. Here you go. I'm having
Thirsty Thursday. I'm having a big cup of coffee.
And I'm having just iced tea, which
and
is
you can
killing
see
my
that.
stomach.
And it says this coffee is making me awesome.
And it is.
And yeah, if you think that's just coffee that makes me awesome, well. Who is the fool, you or I? I don't know. I don't know. But we wanted to talk about a couple of things real quick. I found this really cool. Actually, my sister gave me this picture of me. I'm just going to show you, not to float my own boat, but I'm like a little kid there, and I'm wearing a Kiss shirt. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. Yeah, I was a rocker at an early age. Sporting some Black Sabbath, Never Say Die tonight. You got your Believe Dot shirt. Believe Dot.
Can't really see it.
Love that stuff. And what else was this doll? I didn't talk about the doll.
This was so funny.
Yeah, so we got this awesome the Nanocom 2 from Katie and Katie Stafford.
Yes.
Spiritual Inc. Delivered to us last week, and they included this in the packaging, and I forgot to bring it out. And this is called a damn it doll. This thing is so cool. I love it.
I need 5. 10. There you go.
I need more light.
Yeah. Well, there you go. A new light.
I can't read it. Can I borrow your glasses?
You're kidding me. Right?
I really can't read it. I forgot to get my glasses.
Oh, well. We're old.
Yeah, I forget things. Yeah. What day is it?
God, I hope I spelled that right.
That's my name. Okay, so pinned to it was this note. It says, when your temper is about to boil, you want to scream and shout. Here's a little damn it doll you cannot do without. Just grasp it firmly by a leg. Find a place to slam it. And as you whack the stuffing out, yell.
Damn it, damn it, damn it. Damn it.
So, yeah, we got that. Here's glasses.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
So we got an awesome guest for you tonight.
As always.
As always. And I say that like every week, but we're blessed. We are so lucky we get to talk to the coolest people out there.
Yeah, we do.
And have the most interesting, in-depth conversations and share them with you. So we feel lucky. We hope you enjoy. Our guest tonight is Dr. Michael Lynch. He is a doctor in parapsychology and an avid researcher of all things mysterious.
Right up
Michael
our alley.
Talks about a wide range of things. You're going to like this. So I'm going to bring him right on. Good evening, sir.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to join your little party.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to keep it light here. Yeah. Thursdays are like our relaxed night. You know, we get a little goofy on Thursday, and then we have serious Saturday, which is a whole nother thing.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, I'm glad to be here. I'm so happy to be here. So,
not that we're not serious. Of course we.
No, we're always serious.
But I noticed you have a mathematical sort of equation behind you, and I know this is in reference to consciousness, and I thought that'd be a great place to start because we love consciousness studies and trying to understand what it is, and we're pretty into like panpsychism
and
and the ability to hold a consciousness.
A couple of years ago, I was at a conference out in California, and a lot of people came up to me, and we were talking about consciousness. You know, where is consciousness? What is consciousness? Things like that. And at that time, I said, well, it's in the cloud. You know, consciousness is just an ambient form of energy, and it's just in the cloud as a memory matrix. So I said, we haven't quite narrowed it down. And so that was about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And so I came home and I said, we have a discontinuity. You can't have something and not know where it is. So you see, so you have to say consciousness is in our reality. Consciousness is a reality, and it's in our reality. So my task was to find an expression that I could say, and that it would mean everything to everybody in the paranormal world, as well as the physics, the realm of physics. And so we always have been trying to get paranormal into physics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after all my studies, after all my crazy, insane things that I do, I figured it out. And that is energy equals information. So if you're watching me via the internet or whatever, everything that you see me do and hear me say is energy, ones and zeros, basically, into a digital format. And then that energy is translated back into information. The same way with shortwave radio, the same way with television, the same way with analog or digital. Information or energy is translated into information. Now, we can go even beyond this and say the sun is sending light to my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the melanin in my skin, the cells go, oh, I'm hot, I got to protect myself. So they create melanin, I tan. Okay, I don't do that. I'm not thinking, oh, I got a tan to save myself from the sun. You see what I'm saying? The cells do it automatically because that's just what they do. Okay, so we can always debate whether it's a chemical reaction in the brain, in the cortex or hypothalamus or whatever. We can say it's chemical, but it is still information. And so you can't have one without the other. So by having this expression, energy equals information, describes everything in the paranormal. There's nothing that does not explain. So whether you're psychic, whether you're downloading information through technical remote viewing, whether you're having a dream about something, it is information. It's energy, basically, information, and it is translated into the information. So there's really, like I said, if you're a psychic, the technical remote viewer, you're always downloading information. That is really energy by itself. Now, the expression is in an orb, and this orb is human consciousness once it leaves the body. So when you start to see orbs, mists, spider webs kind of things, and a lot of other variety, right? It is information. That is energy, and that has capsulated information. Now, when you talk to someone like I have, and I've watched over 300, if not more, near-death experiences, and I've talked to people who've had near-death experiences, they will start to tell you that they'll start to tell you a lot of things. But what they're trying to tell you is they're translating everything that they're experiencing into an expression. Okay, so they can't really say what heaven is made out of. Oh, it's made out of pixie dust. It's made out of the ether or the ethereal.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything. So what it is energy. What it is basically energy. And from that energy, everything is created. So your thought, if you're an orb, you have 360-degree visual capability. You also have sensory perception that is 360 degrees. So when you are going through the tunnel into the afterlife, you will have an astral body, an ethereal body, and then that will start to collapse. And when it collapses down, it gets down to your basic fundamental mindset, your mind, your consciousness. And then that's all that becomes. So that also has electromagnetic fields to it. It also is comprised of different levels of energy. And like a cell, it kind of has a membrane and a nucleus. And that nucleus is constantly coordinating and downloading information. It's symbiotic. It's very symbiotic. So you can be in the afterlife and you can think that it's a whole new reality because it's just a program that's running. That is just energy that's being expressed through information. And then you're receiving that. So in a near-death
information kind of equals the experience that you're having, which is the consciousness, right?
Right. If you look at consciousness as a okay, see, so this is the whole thing. every time a new physics professor gets up and starts talking about certain things, everyone in the paranormal world will latch onto it. And the study of quantum physics is like the latest new, addition to the vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Well, quantum is nothing. Quantum is nothing. Think of it like this. As I sit here in my office here, I'm actually in my lab, but I sit here in my office, and there's 80,000 to 100,000 cell phone signals going through my body right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay,
right.
plus the radiation from the universe and the galaxy, and the energy from the Earth, the Schumer resonance is coming through my body. Okay, so in theory, I could be breathing, inhaling, exhaling quantum material, and it does nothing. It's nothing. It's neutral. Quantum is neutral, except when we look at it. Now, when we look at it, it does something that we expect it to do. It anticipates what? Our consciousness. Our consciousness controls quantum.
Spookiness of quantum physics, right? Is
right.
the observation of it and how the electrons or particles behave.
So if I light a match, if this was a match and I could light it, in theory, it would affect all the molecules around it, which would start a wave, and those would connect to other molecules throughout the entire universe, and they would all react. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's the exchange of energy. So what it does is it's just like a domino effect. You push the first domino, and then all starts falling down. Well, that's just the way quantum is. It's just a particle that you can use to transmit energy on, and that's all really what it is. It's not has very little to do with consciousness, but it has a lot to do with how the universe conducts itself. Your mind is so powerful that when you want something or wish for something or pray for something and you're sincere, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is compliant to that thought form. Mm-hmm. And it will, with all the gears out there in the clock, all the gears that make it all work, it will start to becoming compliant. And the thoughts that you're thinking are transmittable. So you're transmitting a thought to a person, place, or thing that you are wanting to, for it to be better, for it to be healthy,
change
or
to, sure.
Right. That voodoo doll you just had, that little damn it doll.
It's a damn it doll.
Is voodoo is the same way. Once you get the idea of that person in your head, mm-hmm. you can then inflict pain on it. But it's not really pain. It's that you are imagining, you're inflicting the thought of the pain through the space to affect that person. And that is just the same as power of prayer works. It's just the same as, the healing hands work, all this stuff. It's all transmitted it's energy. It's all transmitted energy with an information tag on it. So, okay, if I say a prayer and I say, I'm going to pray for Chris Carr, okay? Well, that's a tag. I've just tagged you. Mm-hmm. And my prayer is going to go to you. Not all the Chris Carrs in the world. It's just going to go to that Chris Carr. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's a tag. And that's exactly the way that energy works. So if I have voodoo or voodoo or whatever, and I say, okay, I'm going to make him hurt, I'm going to stick a needle into you, a little voodoo doll, right? That's my intent, is to make you suffer with pain, and that is the way that works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The quantum realm understands that and says, I will become compliant with the other molecules, with the other electrons, with the other neutrons, and obey that. Okay, and then that's what they do. So consciousness can be capsulated. Our consciousness can be capsulated, and we can dissect and analyze that all at once. But it's like when you see a fish in water swimming around in your aquarium, you go, how does that fish do that? Well, the volume that he is in is water. So the fish can swim all the way around that aquarium. Okay. Mm-hmm. When we see consciousness outside the human body, it just floats around. You know, it's like, where's it going? What is it doing? It could not do that, not unless it was in a medium like water, a medium that sustained it. If not, consciousness would just implode as soon as it, or just explode as soon as it left the body. It would just go back into the energy, to the energy which it came. But that's not the case. When we see orbs, or an astral body, or whatever you want, full bodied apparition, or any apparition, it's stable. It is stable. Now, the reason why it's stable is because it has an environment around it that we have no clue on how that's constructed. But that environment sustains it for it to hold that shape. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we're not even, we're very close to understanding this environment.
Yes.
But you cannot, but if you think of the consciousness, the orb, as a fish, the fish could not swim, could not do anything out of water. If you just put the fish on the ground and watched him, he'll just flop around. He can't do anything. He's totally helpless. The fish is in an environment that sustains him. Consciousness is in an environment that sustains it, or it would not exist at all.
Right. I totally agree. I think there are different levels of consciousness. Like a human experience is like a different thing than it is, say, for a tree, which clearly has some kind of consciousness. Mm-hmm. We talk about trees and how they talk to each other through mycelium a lot, and that kind of thing.
I mean, they transfer it.
They clearly are conscious of what's around them. They can discern
absolutely.
Their siblings and
right.
trees that are getting too much light or taking their light and that kind of thing, and choke off feeding them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think their reality is anything like ours, where we're kind of like in this 3D world.
Well, just like an animal, say like a cat, they have their own consciousness, but they're not as intelligent as humans.
Yeah, right. I love it. It reminds me a little of a book I read called The Alchemist. And I just looked up the quote because I couldn't remember the whole thing, by Paulo Coelho. And he had written in this book, and it's almost like a fable. It's a great book. And when you want something, the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. And he's talking about manifestation in that. And it's a running theme through that book. And you think these things happen on a quantum level, that the particles are actually moving, or
no? The quantum transmits the energy of your thoughts. Okay. It also it refines the transmission. So if I want something, how do I put this? If I want something unique or particular, then I have to have that in my head. I have to visualize it before I send it to the quantum. But think of it like a telegraph line. Think of it, there's energy, or a phone line. There's energy in the line, which is the quantum. It's always in fluctuation. It's always moving. And then I send a signal to it. Then all of a sudden, it's not fluctuating anymore. It lines up. Back in the day, we had, I had one over here a while ago, reel-to-reel tape players, and reel-to-reel, or cassette. They come out with cassette and 8-track. Yeah. Okay, that was all analog. And all of what was happening was there was a magnet going over a tape, and the tape would line up electrons on the tape, and that's what made the sound. And then when you played it, the head of the player would read those electrons, those domain electrons, and then you would hear music. Okay,
it's amazing in itself, and it's all.
Think of the tape as the quantum. It's going to line up to your expression.
I like that. Very cool.
And that's analog. Okay, that's analog. It also works in digital. But I'm just saying that's
Oh,
the old
yeah.
analog analogy of it. Excuse me.
Yeah, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. I get a comment out
Yeah.
here from Talisha Probst says, we live in a 3D world, but it is so much more excelled than that. Think of drawing a 2D figure while we live in a 3D surrounded by 5D energy.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the five
Yeah,
dimensions?
with the 5 dimensions. Yeah.
Well,
Multi-dimensional, we should say.
yeah.
Strength,
We don't really.
I think.
Yeah, we're really not in a 2-dimensional world. We're in a 6-dimensional world. Think of a box. It has 6 sides to it, and so our dimension is really 6-sided. To have 3D, you have to be in a 6-sided format to have 3D, because you have height, width, and depth. Okay.
Mhm.
So if we go now, that's just for my physical. That's just the physical aspects. That's how we navigate through space. This is how I navigate with my GPS and drive around the city. Okay. So
Yeah.
I understand that. An airplane uses those same areas of physics. Okay, goes up, goes down. It's using the air to fly itself. And so that's really a 6-sided 3D dimension. Now, if you want to go to another level, then you develop into like what we call a tesseract idea, where you actually throw in another dimension, and we could do that. The problem is that higher dimensions can always come down, but lower dimensions cannot go up. And because we couldn't exist there very well, because the strains on our physical capability, our physical bodies, our physical mindset is just not able to get in there. It's not able to imagine it. It's not able to, it's not sustaining for us. Now, they can always come down. So we always hear like, the Arcturians from the 7th dimension came and visited me at night and all that. Well, yeah, they could do that. But did they invite you to come on board their ship and go to their planet or their dimension? No, because they know you cannot exist in that dimension. Now, your mind, because it's universal, it's like the universal socket wrench or whatever, it can go there. But your physical body just can't. There's nothing that we can actually do to do that. There's no way. But our mind could leave our body through a near-death experience or through an out-of-body experience.
Absolutely.
And it could go there. Yes, I agree with that totally, 100%.
A lot of abductees talk about things like that, and they never really get past the ship, right? So they see the ship,
right,
and it's maybe like 30 feet across. They go in it; it's huge. Things happen on the ship, but they never go to the planet. They don't get to exist with the other colonies,
right?
And it would be too much.
I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of problems when we start getting into higher dimensions or even lower dimensions, because we don't have any control over it, and that sustainability with those pressures and those forms of energy, our bodies just could not handle. It's just not designed that way. So if you want to go to it mentally, have an out-of-body experience or your consciousness leave your body, then sure, you could probably do that. But then you have to find where you want to go and find your way back. And that's why a lot of people, look at dreams and they do dream studies quite a bit. So even the extraterrestrials know when to stop. They know their limits. They know their limitations. And when you're it's just like this. It's just like this. We couldn't go to a planet that was larger or had more mass than the Earth. It would just squish us.
Right.
So think of us going to a whole another dimension that we've never been to physically. Well, then that would just squish us. It would just destroy us. Think of it like this. it's taken man millions of years to develop an immunity against hay fever or the common cold. Okay. And we still get hay fever and we still get the common cold. Okay.
Right.
So let's go to another planet. Let's go to another planet that we can walk around on, maybe colonize. Okay.
Breathe.
But we got to breathe that air. And if we get some pollen or some dust that we are not have any immunity to, it will kill us. We'll just die. Anaphylactic shock will take place.
Sure.
Some people get stung by a bee and go to anaphylactic shock. Some people get bit by a spider, and they go into shock right away. So we're on another planet, and it has to be like on Star Trek, an M-class planet, or we couldn't exist. We couldn't breathe the air. We have no immunity to the pollen that's on that planet. We have no immunity to spider bites or scorpion bites or whatever. We have no antidote. So just think of that in a whole nother dimension where you have another side to your parallelogram, and where would you begin and where would you end?
Exactly. It would be hard to even perceive those things based on our biology. That's
correct. Yeah, correct.
We wouldn't see the five-dimensional scorpion bite you.
Yeah, and we're fighting 2 or 3 things at the same time. This pandemic with the COVID-19 situation, and then the Omicron and all this other stuff. So we have no real immunity to that. Okay, now where did that come from? Well, it came from bats, the saliva and the dung of bats. That's where COVID-19 came from. So, because why? We don't hang out in bat caves like Batman and breathe in, their saliva or their guano. Yeah. So we live in a pretty sterile environment. I mean, we live in a pretty sterile environment, and you take the average person out camping, and they're coming back. Just to be an armchair sociologist, I watched Naked and Afraid for 5 minutes, and I can't stand it anymore. But you get these people out there naked, and then and look at their skin. They have rashes. They have bug bites. They are not any more adapted to that environment as we are with the Neanderthal. I mean, we're totally removed. It's as if we don't even belong on this planet, as if we're not even designed for this planet. Look at most of the insect life. It has exoskeletons.
Yes.
Your common ant, your common grasshopper, your locust. I mean, exoskeletons. They have armor. What do? We have to make Kevlar.
Right.
We have to build armor, to go out and fight fires and go to war. And
we're extremely domesticated. We've conditioned ourselves, and it's kind of like our pets. And if you have a cat or a dog, that's a domesticated animal. You cannot put that animal out in a desert and expect it to survive in any way. No. It does not know what to do.
That's right.
Right.
They are domesticated from animals that knew how to handle those things, knew how to handle the forest or whatever it is. And I totally agree with you with Naked.
Like adaptation. Yeah.
Adaptation, domestication.
Right.
I have a couple of good questions out here, so I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, shoot. I'm sorry. I don't want to take up all these.
You were answering the other question.
I love this question.
Madison Gee says, "Can you propose a theory for disembodied voices? How might that work on a quantum level?"
It's easy. The quantum is the energy transference. Is like I said, it's like the telephone line or the telegraph wire line, and it perpetuates or promotes the frequency and tint. The tenor. I'm going to say tenor of the voice, so we can tell if it's male or female, if it's an animal or whatever, dog barking. That is energy that they know how to use, because everyone more or less talks, has the capacity to talk, even though they have no vocal cords or mouth. Or that is why most EVPs are about four words long. The longest I've ever heard was 8. So a lot of EVPs are 4 words or less.
Right.
Like, is there somebody in the room? Yes. Okay, that's one word. Okay, who is that somebody? John Smith. Okay.
Right. Two
Right.
syllables.
He's right. 2 or 3 syllables, 2 or 3 words. He's transmitting a basic form of information. Now, we can get into whether it's infrasound or not. And a lot of people will say, oh, this is just infrasound. It is a information that is vibrating the rest of the room, which is creating that sound. Well, that's not technically true. I don't really go along with the infrasound, but I understand the infrasound has the impact. Okay, but I had an old friend. His name was Lou Gentili, and he was like the guy who plows the road for all this to take place. And he would have a tape recorder. He would turn it on, hit record, put it in his car. Then he would go into the haunted house and start asking questions. The answers were in the tape recorder in the car.
Because they knew where to put it. Yeah.
The tape recorder, he had another tape recorder, which was in his hand, and he would get nothing. So the entity that reads your mind was sitting in the car, or he didn't have to even be in the car. It's non-local. So the entity was either in the car with that tape recorder, reading Lou Gentili's mind while he was asking the questions, and then he was responded onto that tape recorder. But he had 2 of the same tape recorders, only one would get an EVP.
Right. This happened.
The other one would not.
We've seen this kind of thing happen in our own experience.
Yes.
We've seen how they can manipulate our eardrums as they are basically microphones. Microphones are based on eardrums. You can have 2 recorders side by side and only one gets the EVP. This intent is a focused thing on the spiritual realm's part. And speaking of the spiritual realm, I see our friend Nathaniel Gillis is out there.
Hello. There he is. Hey, Nathaniel, how you doing? I just read his Facebook page.
Memories in reference to the EVPs. And hey, buddy. He's raising hell because he's a demonologist. That was my joke, right?
Don't hit the okay, good. You hit the right one. Good job.
But
that didn't work.
I really do think it's like a focused thing, and they can pick where they want to the voice to land. I often think a lot of times the reason why they sound whispery is because they're using the actual sound of your breathing. I think they use environmental things to create those EVPs a lot of times. That's why spirit boxes work as well as they do, although there's a lot of false positives with that. You're inviting it. You're also putting out like a palette of paints, if you will. Does that make sense?
Right. There's 2 or 3 schools of thought. The ITC school of thought is that they have to have a medium in order for it to translate through. So sometimes they do it with water, and they'll take photographs in moving water to get facial. And then other times they'll put white noise in the air to try to amplify the disembodied voice, or they put pink noise in the atmosphere. And I've seen people put Jacob's ladders in to burn off electrons, an electron generator, and put
that's
energy into the atmosphere.
Kind of like rods, right? That kind of stick up.
Yes.
And
like an old Windhurst machine, if anybody looks that up. But anyway, that's totally unnecessary. If the entity has the ability, they will use that ability. There is more energy right here in the room that I'm in with just free electrons to be able to get the information that I want. There's really no need to pump more energy into that environment. What that is doing is creating a false positive, you might say, because you're actually fueling the atmosphere with something that's going to record on your equipment. And if it does do that, then you have to carry that electron generator or whatever around with you all the time to get that amplification. But there's really far more energy right here around us than we really know. And like I said,
because we don't perceive it,
we don't perceive it. Exactly. We don't.
Most of it like being electromagnetic in nature, like you mentioned, light and radio waves and all those things. Like there's radio stations blaring right through you at all times.
Yeah, AM, FM is
stuff
blowing right through me. Yeah,
that can be used,
cell phones.
Yes.
by the spirits, and it seems to be that way. We try to prove it, but I love hearing thoughts on this stuff. Thank you.
Questions.
Yeah, let's say we have other questions.
Yes.
Everything's energy. It's everywhere. We agree. And then it was a longer one here. I've always thought we lived in a 3D, or in the other three were simply mirroring the first actual three. Or you could say they are shadows of the first three, or mimics. Either way.
I like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. That's
interesting thought.
Either way, yes. Right. A shadow is 2D, but it creates we're 3D, which creates a 2D shadow. That's correct. But we still need 6 sides of the box to navigate through. So we still have, to get 3D, you still actually have to have a little bit more, to be able just to navigate, or this world would be very small, very quick, So, but I getting back to the EVPs, I've used everything that I get my hands on, anything that ever came out and went down the pike. And I'm still not an audio man. I'm a video guy. So I don't really get good EVPs. What I do, and what we did the very, very beginning of the research, we had a psychic come along with us. And she, over time, we both had, it was a learning curve. And she, over time, became our mouthpiece. She would start getting the information from the entity, and she would start to translate. But, we always had a backup, a qualifier. So if we got something on tape, that corroborated the psychic, then we knew that we had something. And I've been on several investigations where that has happened. The psychic will say there's 4 or 5 children running around the room, and sure enough, on the recorder, there's kids laughing, and they're running around the room playing tag. So I think, you always have to have a kind of a backup system. When I first got started, I had an electrical engineer, I had a videographer, I had me, and then my background was so varied because I was in television and physics a lot. And then we had to have we got a psychic. And so I had to play backup for the camera guy. And then I had to learn electronics to back up the engineer. So we always had a backup. So someone would record something, and then one of us would have to judge whether this was right or wrong, this was right, or was it just a mistake or whatever. So we were whittling out a lot of the evidence. We just kind of threw it to the side. But then when we started getting into video, which was my expertise, then we really knew that we were into something. And then we started getting into the EVPs, but the EVPs were like an echo of what was really going on. They were softer. They were in a different hertz frequencies, not like the human voice at all. And so once we figured that out, then we knew that, okay, we just have to see the spectrum, the spectrograph. And if the voice is way up here, that person's been dead for a long time, because there's no vocal cords that can go into that range. And then once we get into that range, then we say, okay, well, that's an EVP. That's a bona fide EVP, because it's just not in the hertz range of the regular voice.
Way to judge them. Yeah, by the frequency range.
So when you go out there and you do get an EVP, man, I'd love to listen to it, but you have to look at the question, the intent of the person who asked the question. You have to look at the response, and was this response in that room, or was it down the hall, a non-local response.
Now let's talk about that intent just real quickly, because I think this will help our audience that are maybe paranormal people doing investigations or going on tours and different things. Mm-hmm. The intent, I think, is really important, and I wonder what your thoughts were on that. Like you mentioned, the intent of the questioner. Do you think it's important for a person to put a lot of intent into their questions, really try to put an emotion behind it to convey what that question means?
No,
or does it matter?
We had to, or I had to become a neutral. You have to become totally neutral. You have to have no intent whatsoever. Your mind has got to be almost blank. And you have to have no emotion. You cannot be scared. You cannot be angry. You cannot be frightened. You can't be in love. When you walk into a real investigation, you have to be ice cold neutral. And then you have to have a list of 20 questions that are direct. I'm directly asking you this question. It's like a hostile witness in a court of law. I want yes and no answers. Did you live in this house? Were you the owner of this house? So I want yes and I want no. I don't want.
Trying to keep it simple and
right.
Yes,
pretty straight.
Exactly.
And you're establishing a baseline.
Because then you're establishing a baseline and you actually go into the facts of the history of the house. I have heard so many people say, well, we looked up the history of the house and we went down to the property place in the library and you spent 6 hours doing zip when I can just ask the entity. And not 9 times out of 10. I mean, it's kind of, that's a little more. I'd say about 50% of the time, the entity that's in the house does not even own the house, is not even related to the house. He's just wandering by.
The traveler.
It's
he's a traveler. Yeah, he's a wanderer. He has nothing to do with the house. He has nothing to do with the history of the house. And, they can come up with, oh, well, back in the 1880s. Well, yeah, it always happens in the 1880s because that's when the printing press was in every little small town in the world. They could develop their own paper.
Sure.
So you don't.
And people read them. Yeah.
So I'm going to do. I watched a lot of Perry Mason. So let me see if I can do this. I don't know because when you have a hostile witness, the entity does not have to tell you the truth. In their world, karmic law does not apply. Okay, karmic law should apply, but if they're already earthbound and they're not wanting to go on, that means they can lie to you, they can be mischievous, they can do whatever they want.
Oh, we know. Yes.
And they don't have to obey the karmic law. Now, the karmic law is that they cannot lie to you because there's repercussions. There's repercussions and all that.
Yeah, people say these things.
Yeah.
Please expound on that because
okay,
not much for karmic law.
Okay. Well, karmic law means karmic law is that if you're in the ethereal or you're in the afterlife, the energy of love is so great, should be so great, that you don't want to do any bad habits anymore. You don't want to lie or mislead anyone. Because the repercussions is angels are going to come down and take you someplace where you don't want, where you should be. And a lot of entities don't want to do that. They want to hang on to this earthly identity so much that they are not going into the afterlife. But if they do something that will hurt anybody else, even lying to somebody else, that disturbs what's called karmic law, and that it points against them until the point to where they're just removed. They'll be removed, and I don't know where they really go. But
you've seen this happen. We've had spiritual media, rescue mediums, I guess is the right term, tell us similar things. That they can call in like a police of like angelic beings, and
ancestors,
and these entities have to do what you tell them, or else they're kind of like in trouble. I'm going to put that in quotes.
Right.
But so you've experienced this as well.
Yeah, there's also a level there to where you don't want the entities to help you. I know a lot of people who like that and they get into that, but then that develops a bond, more like chains to you and to them, to where you can't be released and then they can't be released. I've heard so many stories. Now, again,
you mean like an attachment?
Pardon?
An attachment? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, like an attachment. Yes. You become attached. And then their personalities and your personalities start to merge. And then you start developing these multiple personalities. And you're not really schizophrenic, it's just the entities that you wanted them to do something for you are now attached to you. Now, I've heard, like I said, some of this stuff comes from reputable people. So I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I'll listen to you. But I've heard so many stories about tulpas. And this is where people go out and they create an image of something that they want.
Right.
And they give it its identity. And it's a tulpa. And these things will look real. They look exactly, they're solid, they look solid, but they don't eat and they don't sleep. And the tulpa will do whatever the master says it to do. In many cases, the tulpa will start developing a greater personality and start going rogue. And so the creator has to destroy it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There was another experiment called the Philip
Yeah, Philip.
up in Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where they created a mock tulpa out of different selected identity situations. And so they said, well, he's a knight, or he's been knighted, and all this other stuff. They gave a whole fantasy imagination of this,
like a history,
long-headed, whole history. They created him out of a thought form, and then Philip started to respond. Well, that was fine until he starts to go rogue, and then he cannot sustain his own identity and starts going mad. They start losing their identity. There was a case like this, and I'm not going to say the guy's name, but he was a very predominant paranormal researcher back in the day, and he and some friends got together and repeated that experiment. And they created something like Lily or Lucy, I forgot the name of the girl, but they had created their own thought form tulpa entity.
Egregore.
And when I got there, it was still running around, okay, mad, going mad. And so I asked my guides at the time to destroy it, shut it down completely, just destroy it. And so they did. And it was like putting it out of its misery. Because once that was created, they left it alone. They just went off and did, they went shopping. We go to the mall, we went back to work,
Mm-hmm.
We didn't sit there and nurture it and take care of it. So it was just wandering around this hotel where they had created it, and it was just going crazy. Lights would flicker, things were falling off the counters and stuff like this. And everyone says, "Oh, it's a haunting."
It's had a lot of energy. Yeah.
Is it right? Because it was going mad. It was going mad. And so I asked my guides at the time, and I said, can you please shut this one down? Shut it down and return it back to the ether. And they did, and none of the problems still existed. The problem about getting something else to do your bidding is that you then become karmically responsible for it. And you're supposed to take care of it. It's just like a dog or a cat or a baby or whatever.
Yeah.
You
I
have
heard about
to.
this in like chaos magic, chaos magicians will create, they call it an egregore, but it's exactly like a tulpa. And you give it an intent, you give it a job. And when the job is done, it needs to self-destruct. And it's all put into the spell work and energy manipulation that is done, the sorcery. That's where those lines of that and the paranormal kind of meet.
I got a very big
seemingly
I got a very big argument with the Jewish rabbi about the golem. I said, man, you're drinking too much of your own water, because that golem story is not only maybe fictitious, but I can tell you that no one ever shut that golem down. You see, so the karmic responsibility for that golem, whether it was, whether whose ever history it's in, makes, if you're not karmically responsible, meaning I'm going to take care of it because I have created you, man, you're dealing off the edge. You are off the edge of the world here. Okay. talking to Nathaniel Gillis, talking to him, I said, listen,
you love Nathaniel.
Yeah, demons are these people or things that cannot forgive themselves. They live in a purgatory of regret. A purgatory of regret. And they cannot forgive themselves for what they have done. And it fuels back on them. Daniel Brinkley started a hospice group to have veterans die in peace because they are so ashamed that they went into war and killed their fellow man. That if they don't forgive that, they won't go on. So Daniel Brinkley's had like 4 or 5 near-death experiences, says that, you know, he was told to do this. He was told to do this by his own guides when he died. And he came back. And he was told to do this. This was his destiny, okay? And he was in the Marines himself. So there's a lot about forgiveness, something about it lightens the soul. It doesn't make it so dark, you know? And because hate will make you like a demon.
Mm-hmm.
You will hate everything. And then when you cannot communicate to someone else, and you can't communicate to someone else on how sorry you are, that's even worse.
Right. So what you're saying in a way is that your thoughts, the way these powerful emotions that come with our thoughts have almost like an energy of themselves, an energy that can come alive. Yeah.
Why? Because we're transmitting it. We're transmitting that energy.
That's what magic is all about. It's intent and thought. Like you were saying earlier.
And transmission, intent, thought, and transmission. The human heart, the human heart puts an electromagnetic field about 3 feet around us.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that is our aura. The aura, the bioelectricity in our body is even beyond that. Okay. So when people say, oh, I can feel that in my heart. No, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Because the heart and the stomach have more neurosynapses than in the brain.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, I believe
and that's why it's a thing to say, go with your gut. That's a true, honest statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's Yeah. How do you feel? Oh, I feel horrible. I feel like I'm going to puke. Well, that's because you're going with your gut. You know, the mind. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little secret about the mind. The subconscious mind owns 90% of you. 90%. Your conscious mind is barely 10%. So, you know, like I pick up some poison. I don't know it's poison, so I eat it, you know, whatever. And my logical mind says, oh, you just had poison. Well, the subconscious mind goes, now I got to deal with that. I have to deal with that. You know, I'm determining whether you're going to survive or not. The subconscious mind is so in control that if from where you're at, your subconscious mind is already 20 minutes into your future in every direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Mine never stops. It's always things going on. And
you're driving down the you drive down the road. You're driving down the road and you go, oh, I don't feel right. Something's going to happen because your subconscious mind is already there. And by the time you arrive, you see the accident and you go, oh, I got to slow down. You inherently say, I got to slow down. Haven't you ever been thinking like, boy, I haven't talked to Joe Smith in such a long time. And then Joe Smith calls you on the phone.
Out of the blue.
Immediately.
Right.
Yes. Bingo. Okay. What if you're sitting there in your house and a song comes into your head? A song comes into your head and you go, wow, I've heard that song in a long time. And then you go out to your car and turn it on and that song is playing in the exact spot.
Yeah. Especially between us. We have this crazy telepathy thing going on all the time. We're aware of it.
And that happens.
You know, and that's that kind of stuff. Thinking of the same song. Yeah. If we were on a Rush kick for months.
And Rush was everywhere. It was so
it was
bizarre.
So weird, you know. Then all these other synchronicities start to take place around us, and I'm very aware of that.
But that's how the universe works. That's how it works. So there's a signal. I'm receiving it for some ungodly reason. I'm receiving that signal. Okay, but the subconscious is what's making it damaging or not. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I hear everything on that radio station or whatever, but it happens to a certain frequency that you cannot explain. Just like your connections is in the subconscious, and you don't have to be hypnotized. You don't have to be hypnotized for this to really work. But if you want to become psychic, you can be hypnotized in becoming psychic. If you want to quit smoking, you can be hypnotized and quit smoking. Overeating, you can be hypnotized. Now, I can hypnotize you, let's just say, and you can be the best technical remote viewer in the world. You know,
that's what I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, Joe McMonagle would have nothing on you. Ed Dames would have nothing on you. And the whole idea is that why? Because all we've done is unlocked one thing in your conscious mind to say, give you the permission to say, it's okay to use your subconscious. Now go out and get that information. Because why? You're going to send a signal, and then that signal is going to come back. It's energy. It's going to be information. It doesn't mean I'm telepathic or psychic. It just means that I got some information. I went out and looked at it, and I came back with it. Or I'm downloading it, or I download it.
Sure. You're listening to that information that our brain otherwise tries to make too much sense of and pulls it apart, and then makes it into some story and that kind of thing, because our brains are always trying to put things together and make a story out of it. It's where pareidolia comes from, and apophenia, really stems from our brains always trying to understand what's around us so fiercely that we miss some of the most basic messages that come across.
There was an old show called Lie to Me, where they were looking at the micro expressions of the face and determine whether a person was lying or not. The CIA does that. With facial recognition. They scan you with facial recognition by your galvanic response in your skin. They can tell you whether you're lying or not, or whatever. But the whole point is that it's a direct form of reality. If you want to be a super soldier, you can do it two different ways. One is I can biologically create you out of the test tube to become the best super soldier biologically in the world. Okay, but I've got all this DNA from everybody on the planet, so I can make you a better super soldier. Or I can just go in, and this is what they did in Project Stargate. They just went in and said, okay, we're going to hypnotize these people, and they're going to become super sensitive, and they're going to be the next super soldiers, and we're going to create alternate minds, alternate patterns in their brain, so they will have absolutely no bias, no prejudice, and they'll go in and they'll kill whatever they want, or whatever we tell them that they need to kill, or do whatever they need to do. So the mind is like a lock, or like a lock. And once you open that lock, it can do anything. It can be photographic memory. You can have perfect pitch. You can auditory. You can sing like an opera star. All you have to do is get into the mind, and it will fix itself. Now, I was on a talk show. I'm sorry. What do you call these now? It's not a radio show. It's like a podcast radio show. Okay. Sure. I was talking on there about the subconscious mind and how it can get us down the road. It can elevate us to actually communicate with higher level spiritual beings. But we have to learn to open that door for that to happen. And that it only, okay. So if you are responsible, if you're a responsible individual, responsible for yourself, your conduct, your personality, and then you unlock that part of the brain, you can do amazing things. The Olympian athletes would be small in comparison to you. Now there's a doctor, and I forget his name, but he's on YouTube. Type in Shaolin Ki Chong. I may have it bookmarked here, but
Well,
anyway, what he does. Let me just describe what he does. He puts you into a hypnagogic state where you are really, really relaxed. And he puts you you fall on the floor because you're so relaxed, you just want to go to sleep. But in this state, the body starts to repair itself, cures itself, releases tons of endorphins, releases tons of hormones. And then you see these people and they look like they're possessed. Okay. And they sit there and they'll everything but speak in Latin. They'll do everything but elevate and speak in Latin. And you'd swear that they're possessed. They're possessed with their own mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. Especially when you think about intention and what that can lead to.
Exactly. Now, the universe, now I had the old witch doctor tell me this. She said, the universe is neutral. Universe is gray. You decide whether you want it black or white. And I looked at her like, no, I don't think it's all gray. But I do believe that we decide the reality on how we function in our world. And if you want to get down to the basics of quantum physics and do the double split experiment.
Yeah, double slit.
Yeah, it would tell you exactly that. We are gray. We are gray. The energy is gray. But when you put an intent on us, we do exactly what you think. Yeah. You know, just by observing it.
Right.
Yeah. So okay. A simple photon, neutron, photon is going through a double split, and it does exactly what it wants to do under its own free will, which is just chaos. But as soon as I stare at it, it obeys that intent, because why? I'm thinking, oh, you photon should go straight, and you should only be here and here and here.
Expected to do, right? As you would imagine it.
Expectation. Okay. How many times have your parents said, "Oh, I expected more out of you"? You know, I expected you to be the sports player of the sports players. You know,
yeah, sure.
Because why? Their intent sure didn't get to my thick skull. You know, my dad wanted an athlete. You know, my dad wanted big, strong athlete. You know, when I was growing up, and I just couldn't do that. I couldn't fit that bill.
But what about ghosts? You know.
Yeah, and so as I got older, I was in college, and they said, Mike, what do you want to do? You have 3 choices. And I said, really? And they said, yeah. And they said, you have 3 choices: news, weather, or sports, and maybe traffic. But back in those days, we didn't have any traffic problems, so it was news, weather, or sports. And I go, no, I don't want to do that. And they say, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I've been thinking about this Loch Ness monster and this Bigfoot. I've been thinking about that. And they go, oh man, you'll never amount to anything. You're wasting your money being in college, being in communications. And that's true, more or less. But I've had a very good life, but I never, I haven't written any books, and I'm not going to sell any books. But the whole point is that I was also told at a very young age, not by a witch doctor or anybody, but they said, if you go do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And this is just one thing that I really like. I mean, I really love it, and I feel I'm pretty good at it. I've analyzed it to where I'm very comfortable with it. And a lot of people say, oh, you need to you need to do this and you need to do that. And I said, well, I could, but I'm not comfortable with that. You know, so in my gut says, no, you shouldn't be doing that. But my head says, yeah, you know, I could do that. I could do that. You know, that's not a problem. But I always, what I say now is, if you're caught up writing books all the time, then you're not doing research. And that was kind of my thing. I said, I'd rather do research than sit down and write a book. You know, I'll take notes and all that stuff. But I said, you know, research is really the key. And I wouldn't have this expression up behind me in an orb entity if I had not just done that research. And there's another thing about this, is that the research of the 20th century should never walk into the research of the 21st century, because we are that far ahead. If you have a 20th century mindset, we'll never get to the point to where we're going to be adults about this. And
you have to be open to new ideas. Absolutely. I totally agree. Sure. You get stuck in the waves of the, you know, the last century's physics, for example, or Newtonian physics or something like that. You're going to limit yourself in what's really possible, or you're going to become a denier and just say that didn't really happen and try to talk your way out of like the EVP that is class A, crystal clear, answering your question in 3 syllables. And, you know, how did that happen, right?
Totally everything out.
Yeah.
I've talked to Michael Schumer a number of times. He is working as an adjunct professor at some small college, but he puts out Skeptic Magazine. He's the editor-in-chief of Skeptic Magazine. And 9 times out of 10, we both look at the problem the exact same way, except is I sit there and go, wait a minute, what if we do this? And then that's going to change the outcome. That's going to change the result. And Michael will say, no, we're not going to do that. Well, I get to a point where I like Michael, but skeptics sometimes become lazy. And if they're not doing the same type of research that I'm doing and present that evidence, then they're a waste of my time. I don't have time to do your work for you. I'm doing my work. You do your work. You prove me wrong. I'm going to prove myself right. Okay. I got the equipment. I built it myself. I'm gone from the ground up on this. The skeptics have got to do the same thing. They've got to sit there and go, okay, Mike, you're wrong. You're wrong because we ran that test and we didn't get that result. Okay, well, that's great. We're running the same test. No. These guys just walk in and say, oh, I don't believe in that. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah,
of course not.
You know,
once you shut off those frontal lobes, Mike, once you shut down those frontal lobes, nothing's going to happen to you.
And you can't learn. You can't learn.
Exactly.
No new discovery.
Nope. They have no open mind, and they're set in their way, and they won't look into it at all.
I think I got just a few comments on the audience. We'll put up, and
I'm sorry.
We'll talk about, no worries.
God, no.
Don't be sorry. You're awesome. This is great.
Yes, thank you.
Even my coffee thinks so. Coffee is
totally awesome.
Making us all awesome.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the celestial and the terrestrial in a moment.
In a moment, yes.
Let's see. We got Rosie Page, has a show here on the Paranormal United Network.
Hi, Rosie.
Says we are all born to be connected, and
yeah, we agree.
I agree. Vodcast was the
Yes,
word we were looking for.
Yes.
Vodcast. That's it.
Video.
I'm sorry. I'm so old. I'm so old. I don't know what to call.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rosie, but I remember typewriters.
Please don't do that. Joshua Dixon said something to it, which was really funny to that. He's like, I'm 50, and
let's see that. I see a couple of comments here from Joshua. Hey, Joshua, how you doing, buddy? He says, I'm 50 and still confused. Yep. I hear you.
Welcome to the club. That's why we do what we do.
Rosie had a question. Do you think it is also aware that you're watching it, Michael, in some kind of way? I'm not sure. There were a lot of comments. I'm not sure which part, Rosie. Sorry.
What am I watching?
Let's see. Some highs, a lot of agrees. Ride the waves of change. Yes, absolutely. Anne-Marie Young.
We love you.
Now, let me just make a small comment. Since we've been talking, since this program has started and everybody's watching in, your brain under neuroplasticity has already changed. So if I've given you something to think about, your brain is already thinking that. and your brain connectors have already changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole key about what we're doing tonight. It's to examine what we know and then open the line of questioning for the next phase. And then that's going to change your brain. When you sit down and watch a television show for an hour, let's say, your brain has changed from the time you started watching it to the time it was ended. And we get very scientific about this, but in Afghanistan and other battles, you saw this on Apocalypse Now, they would play this music in the background. Now it's all acid heavy metal that they play inside the tanks when they go out and blow things up. In Apocalypse Now, it was Wagner's Flight of the Valkyrie, I think it was. But the whole point was that they had this inspirational music to go out and do destruction. And that gets into their adrenaline. And they become even more fanatical about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you that there's thousands of ways to augment and accent what we're doing. But first, we have to become adults with it. We have to say, we're responsible. I'm responsible for my actions, my well-being, and my intent. And I tell a lot of people, I'm here for your best interest. I'm only here to make sure that you succeed. And people look at me like, wow, I've never heard that before. Well, of course not, because people don't say that anymore. You know, the old timers walk around and say, can I help? Where can I help? The new kids on the block are just saying, what's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's in it for you is going to be a lot of dread and pain and anxiety and probably some PTSD. I mean, post-traumatic stress when it's all done, because you're in the wrong state of mind.
Quite the thing. Yeah, absolutely. I grew up with a lot of anxiety myself, and I didn't recognize it as anxiety at the time, but I just constantly had it, and I've seen it, in my children. It just seems like generations coming up, it's even more so.
Mm-hmm. The technology, I think, is.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say technology is not helping them whatsoever. Phones constantly.
Right. You're staring at these black boxes all day long and stuff. Like if you had told, somebody that people would walk around staring at these little black boxes in their hands, say, 30 years ago
or something,
40 years ago,
there you go. Yeah.
It would be a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. We are in science fiction. I mean, we're living the science fiction fantasy dream
of our youth.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There was a time traveler on TikTok, and he's posted a few things. And the major thing that he talks about is virtual reality, on how it's so lifelike, so real, that you can't distinguish it from normal reality.
Okay.
Well,
so I'm sorry. I was going to say, so what's going to happen in another 10 years with that VR? It's a total simulation.
Right.
And people think that's what we're living in now.
Yeah, he's from like the year 24 or something. And so by that time I can almost say, yeah, you'll be able to smell it. You'll be able to touch it. It will be pretty real.
I love what Rosie said. Absolutely, girl.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Music is a muse.
I tell the story. I've told it a few times on the show, but I'll tell you just because I want you to know. I thought this was really strange. I had this astral projection experience within a dream once and this was recently within the last year, where I fell asleep. I was having a dream, and the dream conducted itself like any other dream, and it didn't make a lot of sense, but I remember it very well. And then I went to rest, and I had this out-of-body experience from within it. Kind of like that Poe dream within a dream thing, right? Edgar Allan Poe. And when I was in the astral experience, I was flying down like a main road of some town I've never seen before, but all the buildings were slightly pixelated. And I thought that was really strange. Like I remember that, like there was a slight pixelation factor. And then I snapped back into my body. I was still in a dream, and the dream continued on. I got up and walked around, and it went on for however long. And then I woke up naturally from the dream. And I thought that was so strange to have that pixelation. It made me think like maybe there is something to the simulation theory. We're not catching.
We're in a digital matrix, and everything is vibrating no matter how still it looks, like this tape, my desk in front of me, and your microphones and stuff, they're all vibrating.
Sure.
They're just doing it at a subatomic level, and we don't really look at that. But what's so interesting about all of this is that it's a fractal. Everything vibrates in energy and then turns into a fractal. The Mallinbrot set, if you ever look up the Mallinbrot set, it's on YouTube. There's quite a few videos now, but you'll see in some of the videos that you can take basic vibration. And cymatics.
Oh yeah, that's very intriguing.
Look up on YouTube. They have all the cymatics there now, different pitches, different volumes, and they will actually, sand, chalk will start to move like snakes. It'll start to move like flowers. It'll make these harmonic shapes.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Now, if you just go one step further, which I did back in '92, you're standing there in Avesbury, England, looking at crop circles, and you go, oh my God, these are frequencies. This is a frequency pattern, and it's all about the frequency. And then you start to realize
some of them are digital patterns. Yeah, you're right. That's right.
Yes, it's all digital. Our universe, no matter how small you get or how big you get, is a fractal in a digital universe. And we are a byproduct. Your body is a symmetrical byproduct, a mirror image of itself. A tree that has the same at the top as it does in its root. It's your brain. You can tip that aside and you have your brain, 2 hemispheres. Everything is a fractal. And it's in the cellular DNA of everything we know. It does not change.
It's not a coincidence, right? I mean,
that's right.
Something even bigger than we realize now. And
exactly. Yeah.
And, if you put a tone out at 440 hertz, A or whatever, and it creates this dynamic pattern in the sand that it rattles. That there has to be something more to that.
Exactly. Frequency and pattern with intent is the entire construct of our universe. Now,
fascinating.
Work with me on this. There are 50 universes. 5 are being explored, not by us, but 5 are being explored. They all are like black pearls floating in the afterlife. The creator takes energy from itself, and puts it into your cellular biology to create you. That is why we're all connected. It's creator stuff. So the creator creates the environment so that we can survive, like a fish in the water. It's compliant for our needs. Here's why we have the ability to think. And then we are in a vessel which can survive, procreate in a fractal universe. And the only thing that does not work in any of this is right here, our consciousness. It's the only foreign body that's in a fractal universe created by the creator. And when we're done with this fractal universe, where do we go? Back to the source, back to the creator.
Now, I'm going to ask you one question and we'll move back onto the terrestrial celestial.
Yeah. Then we'll go back on.
Up this consciousness stuff. Do you think the aliens, when they abduct people or other spiritual beings that possess them, are really looking to steal that consciousness as like a form of energy or food or sustenance, something of value?
No, not consciousness itself. Biologically, yeah. I mean, when's the last time you had a good beefsteak? Good beefsteak.
Don't go there.
Okay. There's certain parts of our brain that really do taste good to certain extraterrestrials. There's certain, the chromium.
You
And
don't
the
say
adrenaline
that.
gland. Okay, so wheat caviar. Oh man, when's the last time you had a good bottle of Russian caviar, man? Oh God,
That's
Okay,
terrible. It's beluga. I would never
I
eat
know,
it.
but that's
I would.
that's the way they think about us. Okay, we're cattle to
Mm.
be harvested. Okay, what we have, that is very important is not our souls or our brains or our good looks and charm. No, it's whoever created us. Okay, put in so much DNA of them that we are now mimicking them, and we are genetically neutral. Okay, and then they can come down and get my DNA through my blood or whatever, and then they can go off and create better versions of myself, better versions of you, better versions of anyone else, and they can do this millions of times with millions of pieces of DNA from all over the galaxy. And then they create a life form that has an immune system that could be put on another planet, has an immune system, biological system that can survive under the worst climates on another planet.
That they may need to colonize because of their own problems. Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's a great thought.
But okay, so when the Earth is done with, when everybody's going back to Mars, we couldn't survive on Mars. Oh, for a couple of reasons. But
You'd have to terraform it.
One is that we need the Schumer resonance
Mm-hmm.
in order to space travel and go to another planet. It has to have the same resonance.
Right.
In the old Star Trek, in the original Star Trek show, the warp engine, the sounds of the warp engine was the Schumer resonance. And then that's how you could spend 5 years in space and not have any ill effect. It wasn't really gravity. It's that the ship harmonically had a resonance that kept the human body alive. And
Can
that's
you
why we can't leave.
define the Schumer resonance for our audience?
Pardon?
Can you define the Schumer resonance for our audience?
A scientific gentleman by the name of Schumer said that the Earth had a 7.2 or 7.5 hertz level, and that if you can go on YouTube and type in Schumer resonance, and you can actually hear it. They actually have it, sound, and it's like a 7.25 or something like that. That's a hertz resonance that the whole Earth gives out. Okay, and when this hertz,
it's the resonance of the Earth itself, vibration, frequency that is,
and that vibration is so important to our cellular and mental health that it's the very first thing you have to think about for long-term space travel or going to another planet. If the planet does not have the same resonance or it's a little bit off, you won't be able to survive very long. Wow. I'm just going to throw this in. This is just for grins. The Paracoccus skulls that you see, the elongated skulls.
Oh, the Caracas skulls, yes.
Yes.
Right, Caracas skulls. They are all from Mars. They're Martians. They came to Mars when Mars was dying, and they were brought here. Well, all of a sudden, they just died out. Well, they didn't really die out, but they had to evolve before, but they mainly died out. So the point being is that they came from Mars to Earth, the resonance changed, the environment changed, and they slowly, over time, could not keep up. So their bodies could not
survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there are a few running around, but they had to mix with humans in order to do that. Yeah.
So you're thinking like you're going with like Denisovans or Denisovans, Neanderthals. You're saying they're mixing in, or did they just die off?
Most of them died off. Not all of them. They had to mix with humans in order to survive if they were to have a lineage. Yeah, hybrids. That's right. Hybrids.
Yes. Thank you,
yeah, but that's because when they were brought here, no one checked their immunity. Whether they could, it was just Mars was dying, and so they had to be brought here, and so that was the whole thing. So at one level, it was like an errand of mercy. On another level, it was like, you may only have like a couple of 100 years before you're all going to be dead. But whatever they did, they evolved. Now Neanderthal, it was inbred. They inbred amongst themselves, and then that's what made them Neanderthals. Okay.
Right.
You might say Homo. Let's say Cro-Magnon was the Homo erectus. A little bit down the road was the first like
more human.
They were a little more human, but they didn't have sex among sisters and brothers, you might say.
Okay.
Now, incestual relationships, but anyway, but all I'm saying is that if you get another planet and you don't think your life expectancy is going to be, you're going to have to breed with some of the locals that are there. Okay, that's the sad part about all this. Or you have to take their DNA and harvest it in order to give it to yourself, so that you can do close encounters of the sixth kind, and that is take foreign DNA into yourself in order for you to be a better, so your species can survive. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Okay.
If we're still in the last century and you still need bread and water and propellant to get to the moon, you're not thinking clearly. You need Schumer residents. You need immune systems. You need better bone structure. You need very smart individuals and biologists that can develop these antitoxins so that you can take it once you get there.
Rapid.
So for Elon Musk to say, "Oh, we're going to go to Mars and we're all going to retire and everything's going to be cool and we'll just sit around and drink pina coladas," I don't think so. Besides, he has to get permission. He has to get permission to do that. NASA had to get permission to go to the moon, and the moon we can see. Sure
more complicated on so many levels than the average person thinks about, because we don't have time to think about this stuff.
Right.
Often,
they deflect,
work. I think kind of an insidious conspiracy that we're all kept so busy that we don't get to think about these things, because we should. And we should kind of know that on some level. You're absolutely right. There's going to be factors we've not even thought about or discussed in the media whatsoever for colonization of the different planets. And our own planet may have gone through some of these similar
changes. Yeah, absolutely. There was more nitrogen and more oxygen at different times in our past. We have taken core samples right out of the North Pole or South Pole, and these core samples, we can see the levels of pollen, we can see the levels of oxygen, nitrogen, and we can just go on from there. When the North Pole melts and the South Pole dehydrates, all that old pollen that's been down there for 1 million years is going to spread through the jet stream.
Yeah, that's scary.
If you think Claritin D is going to solve that problem, you are vastly wrong. You are wrong in so many levels.
That's foreign to our bodies as well, because it was been there for so long. So
it's not in the permafrost. It's actually in the ice pack. And it's viruses go neutral when they go to certain levels of temperature. They just hibernate. They just sit there until the sun comes and warms them back up, and then they get hungry and start looking for things.
Hosts.
And that's us. So if you think COVID was, if you think COVID was something, wait till you get a pollen that was in the Jurassic period or Cretaceous period.
And that's just pollen alone.
Right. That's just it's not even a virus. We're not talking about viruses.
The bacteria. Yes, that's actually happening with the permafrost right now in Siberia. It's melting. They literally want to make a mammoth. They want to make a clone.
Bring back the woolly.
Yeah, woolly mammoths. To go back
and a new sweater.
Press down on the permafrost and make him, so to keep it there. And that's basically it.
The Discovery Channel did a whole documentary on how they pulled a woolly mammoth out of the Siberian ice pack.
Was that the little one?
No, this was the big one, full blown. It was so well preserved that its hair and skin tissue was as if it was just out of today, just like it was alive 5 minutes ago.
It's amazing.
When the Hapgood effect happened, it froze those animals. There's a whole layer called the Siberian death zone in Siberia, and all these animals died in seconds. Seconds. Now, the United States was the North Pole, because what those animals were eating was tropical plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we shifted the America, that's why our soil has been so good, was that the ice pack just melted, boom, and then that was it. All the nutrients that was in that ice went into our soil, and that's why we're the biggest bread box in the world. You know, to keep that alive is going to be difficult, but all I'm saying is that we were the North Pole at one time. So don't think that your condo in Miami is going to be there for a very long time, because it probably won't be there for a very long time. You know, things change on the earth.
She needs to move. We got to go.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I need to
Now,
move to a warmer
now,
climate myself.
how many thousands or millions of years are you talking about with this, about the woolly mammoth?
Oh, no, last week, 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, they pulled a woolly mammoth out, and they're going to clone them, and they need elephants to
to their DNA to bring them back,
to artificially inseminate an elephant.
Exactly, and that's going to be fairly weird, but
yeah. I mean, the thing about this is that because of Dolly the sheep and a few other cloning experiments, we know that once that DNA starts out, it will rapidly age. So that woolly mammoth, if it was 50 years old or 30 years old, will rapidly age to that state. If it ages too fast, it's just going to die. Marfan's disease will kick in, kidneys won't work, intestines won't work. So there may be several tries at this.
Probably.
But I can tell you, these guys are like this.
Yeah, it's
I know.
They're just chomping at the bit, and they want money, and they know they can do it.
Yeah, we're right with you on that one. Yes, we've discussed that a couple of times.
So what's stopping them from getting hold of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, CRISPR. That's the CRISPR thing. Yeah. It's like
combining these things into new crazy combinations
that, like you were talking about before, and we're kind of hybrids of I mean,
and the George Washington, woolly mammoth, Tyrannosaurus Rex,
super soldiers,
the
super soldiers are a real thing, right? Yes. A lot of countries have been working on that. A lot of talk about that and banter.
Actually, there was the Pentagon made one in a missile silo. Missile silo. Thank you.
China too.
That's what they've been working on.
Yeah, supposedly for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah, biologically enhanced creatures. But like you said, expanding the mind can do the rest.
Exactly, playing God.
Which I like. It was a wonderful point. But what did you think of like the satellites that just came down?
Starlink, the Starlink Tesla, 40, from the incoming CE meeting we just had,
crashing due to a CME, a coronal mass ejection. We've got a little sun porn going on there in our background.
Oh, you did say it.
I did say it.
Oh, damn it!
But there's a huge CME shown there.
Yeah.
About 10 or 15 years ago, the same thing happened. And I was at a gas station. And you put your debit card in to get gas. Before I just was pulling it out, getting ready to put it into the machine, and the whole machines went down. The gas station attendant come out and says, "We have lost all of our satellite links." And everyone's sitting there in the parking lot going, "Well, gee whiz, we can't get gas, so we'll have to go down someplace else." I had to go down to an old gas station that you had to pay cash with, and then they come out and fill up your car. You just don't understand how integrated we are with satellites. 90%, not 90%. Let's say
on all this.
Yes, yeah, we're interdependent on it. Okay, you're sitting at home with your cable, you're watching a soccer game from England or France or Spain. It's live. It's in real time. That's all satellite. All of our nuclear bombs are GPS by satellite. Not unless you do it on the ground. So they're guided by satellites, and they can change and manipulate as they're being flown. So if you send 5 nuclear warheads to one city while they're in flight, you can type in the navigational star, and navigational star will send to another city. You know, why waste good nuclear warheads? So it's all done by satellite. Now we have different levels of satellites. We have the government level, spy and communication, and then we have the telephone, AT&T, and the telephone communications, and then we have cable. We have television transmission through satellite.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different layers of these things, and for SpaceX to do this, for that to happen to SpaceX, which is the latest and most sensitive technology, then man, we are so vulnerable to Mother Nature and the sun. And that's really what's causing our poles to melt, is because of the sun. So
sure. People don't realize there was a solar flare in like the 1800s that took out the telegraph system. You know, that literally melted.
It's the I think it's the Carrington event.
Is that what it's called?
The Carrington event.
The kind of like Morse code kind of telegraph thing, and
and
it melted the connectors, and that was down. That was communications. High tech at the time.
The Aurora Borealis went all the way to Dallas, Texas, on the last CME. The Aurora Borealis.
That's crazy.
Never gets.
That's
never crazy.
It never goes that far.
Absolutely.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
That is scary. Well, and it was some sort of event like this that created those satellites. They had been launched, I guess, the day before. There was like 49 of them, but 40 of them have since descended and burned up.
Yeah.
Because of this slight change in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think there's a good side to solar flares and CMEs as well, right? They kind of clean our atmosphere.
It does, yes.
Well, the ions clean the atmosphere, but the problem is that because of the solar radiation, it makes Earth ground inert. And so if you're trying to raise a crop and you get a CME or a sunspot develops, that radiation, after it gets through our atmosphere, will make the ground a little bit more inert. And so we have to refuel it with biological enzymes in order to keep our Earth healthy so you can plant. Too many CMEs kills everything. Bacteria, bugs, everything goes dark. So that's why we have to revitalize the soil because of the sun. And standard now, because of the thinning of the ozone layer and everything, this is standard summers. We get to the point to where if we don't have a major forest fire, which is now happening on a regular basis,
yes,
we have to put bacteria back into the soil to keep it rich, or it just becomes inert. The Sahara was not a desert. The Arabic word for desert is called Sahara. So the Sahara was a tropic zone. Mm-hmm. In ancient Egypt, they had palm trees and date trees, and
that's right.
It was a vacationer's paradise, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the atmosphere started to change. They started getting bugs. They started getting mosquitoes. They had to shave their heads to keep the lice out of their heads. They wore wigs. I mean, the Egyptians went through different phases, but these phases was because their soil, the deserts and the soil was changing, and it kept blowing the sand into where they lived. There was a lady, and she was doing a documentary on some city in outside the Sahara, and it was a really predominant city in the British Empire. Well, now the sand is coming in, and they can't stop it, and it's like snow. It comes in and buries buildings. The Great Sphinx was buried 2 or 3 times,
right?
Before the Egyptians kept digging it up, and haul the dirt away, and then they get a major storm, and boom, all you could see was its head, the Sphinx's head. So, yeah, our Earth is changing.
and it's vulnerable.
It always changes. It's always changed. People call it climate change. Well, there is climate change because we are like speeding it up. So it'll always, but it'll always
making it more
change.
unpredictable.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comments.
Well, it's predictable. It's gonna go bad. That's how predictable it's gonna be. It's gonna go bad.
Yeah. But the CMEs do seem to be on the rise, and I know we had talked a little bit about that off air.
Sun is just ejecting them left and right,
doing a lot of stuff out there, and there's some amazing video if you look for it. In recent times, these CMEs that kind of took out the Starlink satellites and stuff.
And that was small. That wasn't even like an X flare. The X flare is the one that he was talking about that will wipe out, because we depend on technology now, and
power,
and what's something like that, like an X flare comes, that's it, we're done. Power grids go down, and people aren't going to get through the ATMs. They're not going to get anything.
No, the power grid goes down. And you can no longer.
And we're all going to be screwed, and
that kind of thing.
The preppers are going to be the ones that are going to be really good, because they're burying silver in their backyard shit. So
right,
maybe there was an old movie called The Postman. And I don't know if a lot of people remember that movie.
Postman Rings Twice, Jack Nicholson?
No. This was the one that he rode around on a horse and delivered mail, because the Earth had gone through a CME and knocked out all the technology. And so he devised a way that he'd get free food was by delivering people's mail, and they'd invite him in, and he could have coffee and stew and whatever. And then it got to a point to where there was some people left around who started putting pieces back together, and the first thing they could come up with was a C-band radio. But on the other side, the postman got these people to try to reconnect with their relatives in a strange way, and they all started writing letters. And it was like the Pony Express. They were riding over vast distances just to keep in contact. And
wow.
I thought the need for the human condition to Kevin Costner was the actor in the film.
Yep.
But they don't really tell you exactly what happened, but it's because of a CME that caused that. Now, the other thing is too, is that we reverted back to the time of the Pony Express, which is okay, that's not too bad. But yeah, if you get rid of air travel, shipping, trucking,
less pollution.
You have a lot less.
People, you have to think in the time of the Pony Express, we had a much smaller population of people.
Smaller and simpler way of doing it. And then that would be the way it goes. Now, I'm not sure this is correct. Somebody may have to correct me on this, but I heard that up in the 1940s, maybe the mid 40s, if you wanted something, you had to go out to your garden and grow it, because there was no real grocery stores. And I guess in major cities there were, but I guess in small rural areas there was the general mercantile, canned goods. They sold canned goods.
Probably.
Maybe but if you wanted something
farmers
fresh lettuce or you had to grow it. And that is what we need to start looking at.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with you. Chris does as well. We talk about this a lot.
There's nothing better anyways than growing your own food, for sure.
True.
What do you think about the Three Sisters volcanoes?
Oh, yes. Okay. The lava flow between the South Sister and the Three Sisters is increasing. It has raised a complete inch in just the beginning of this year. Now, geologists and volcano specialists don't understand why. The reason why is because there is an asteroid coming right by the Earth. In the next few weeks, I think by the middle of next month, it will have passed us by. It's going to be very close between us and the moon. That's how close it's going to be.
That's really
now. It's not going to be reported on now. Some amateur astronomer sees this and reports it, and it's coming up from the south. So it's coming up from below us. It's going to whip around. Mm-hmm. Now, it's so close, and because the Earth's gravitational field is has such a pull on it, it's actually accelerating in speed. And when it does, it'll slingshot itself around the Earth. Okay. when that happens, just look for volcanoes in the Three Sisters area, or the South Sister especially, and look for a tidal wave on the West Coast. And then look for an earthquake on the West Coast as well, and also the pneumatic fault.
Yeah, Oregon area. Kristen
Yep, I do.
The gravitational
fault. Yep.
Yeah, the gravitational effect from this asteroid. Well, the Earth will have more damage on it than it will on us, but the way it travels, that the speed that's going to travel, creates all these other earthly transformations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at the middle of next month and the month after for these volcanic situations. Now we know that in the Philippines, the Tonga explosion has happened. There's been a couple of other earthquakes, volcanoes that have gone up, and totally unexpected. Totally don't know why they did it. Well, it's because of this asteroid that's happening. Now there's the other situation, which a lot of people won't believe me in this asteroid, but I will tell you that since both poles are melting, North and South Pole are melting, the weight of the water is squeezing the Earth, just like you would squeeze an orange. And the weight of it is squeezing it, so the lava's got to come out somewhere. And it follows the path of least resistance. So anything that will give, and on a fault line or fracture or a volcano, it will come out. Yeah. So when Tonga went up, my eyebrows started going up and said, "Oh man, we gotta look at this." And then there was another one, and then there was another one. And so we're looking at the Ring of Fire. Well, the Ring of Fire goes straight through California. I think a lot of people know this by now, but it goes through California. So, that's that's where I start getting a little bit scared.
California, Oregon has been just so busy in the last, 6 months or something.
Yeah, and I've noticed a pattern.
Tonga, oh my God.
I've noticed a pattern when the West Coast gets, especially Cascadia up in the Oregon over there, when they get there, it's so weird. It's been for like the past 4 months, that when they get a whole bunch of earthquakes, then there's one directly like in the center or up more where people have never had, in the middle of the country, where they've never had earthquakes before. And then we get one on the East Coast, which is weird.
Almost like
it's like
a sequence.
Yeah, it's been very weird lately, and I don't like it. And I talk a lot about this with Chris. So
the earthquake thing is scary. There are a lot of people out there that follow it. There are some sort of alarmist, weather people out there on YouTube that kind of keep this rolling, but it does, if you follow them, and you don't go into complete panic on every episode.
Please don't bug out.
I start to see patterns, and you say, there are a lot more activities happening out there geologically than
ever before
anybody's
that we know.
Talking about.
And it should be all the time in the news, but it's not.
Seems important.
NASA a few years ago, about 2000, I think it was, maybe a little bit earlier, signed the NSA agreement, meaning that if there was an asteroid headed directly for us, they would not alarm anybody. They wouldn't tell anybody. And that if it was within a certain parameter, they would shut down the entire NASA campus where the people could not leave. Now, this falls under national security, which I think is totally insane. It's the opposite of national security.
Yeah.
But they signed that agreement. So NASA doesn't have to tell us, neither do the observation areas have to tell us. Now, what did we just launch? We just launched the most sensitive satellite telescope in the world.
James Webb. Yeah, right.
And I don't even know what they're looking at. It's kind of like
they're looking at some of these asteroids. As I understand it, when they come out of like places like the Kepler Belt and what was the other one?
The Kuiper Belt,
Oort.
The Oort cloud. That's
the Oort cloud.
That
we don't have a lot of headway in understanding the comet that's coming toward us. Those are areas where it passed Neptune, past Pluto with the Oort. they can come at us, and we have maybe, you know, a couple months. It could be
a couple of days.
Could be a year.
That's what's scary.
It depends. You know, it depends on the alignment of the planets. It could be behind something. We don't see it. It could be behind the sun. And I think this just recently happened, right?
It was. Well, what happened was there was they found one by, well, it was by an amateur. What do you call those guys?
Amateur
astronomers.
Astronomers.
But,
yes.
Yes, thank you. But it was in the I think it was December 14th, 2020. They had Argentina and Chile had a solar eclipse. And while the astronomer was looking up, he found a comet. It's called C2020X3. He's the one who found that. And if that didn't happen, we don't know if it would have been found. And it's close to our Earth. Now, is that what you're talking about?
Is that the same one? Or
are you talking about a different asteroid?
How can we look up this asteroid you described?
Yeah, this is not a comet. This is an asteroid. So
right.
It's not going to really leave a dusty trail like comets will.
No
but
tail.
The last one that everyone got really worried about, which was like a couple of million miles away, was Eros 1. Eros 1. And the only way that they saw that was that the sun had hit it and it was glowing. And then but there's more people working at your local McDonald's than looking for near Earth objects. So if there's 60 people, I mean, I'm really overestimating this.
Oh, that's
60
so
people looking for near Earth objects, I will give you a cigar because I know there's not that many. There's probably less than 40, maybe 45. And I knew a girl whose dad did that full time. And I said, well, how many more are there? And she says, well, 35, maybe 40.
Oh my God.
And you're sitting there going, and the entire planet, there's only 40 guys.
Yeah, you're talking globally, not even within North America or whatever.
I don't understand that.
USA, the US of A.
What I'm talking about is something larger than what killed the dinosaurs in the K6, that made the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, I'm talking about something larger than that, swinging by the Earth, and there's only like 35, 40 guys who's on vacation who have the time to do that. And everybody else is an amateur. Everyone else is an amateur.
I've noticed that a lot when I've been looking into these things.
I'm glad they're out there.
Found it. Yes.
Yeah. Does it have an official name?
No, it doesn't have one yet, but just keep your eyes to the skies and your ears to the ground, because that's how it's going to develop. Now, the other thing is that let's get onto the weird side here. There is no extraterrestrial intelligence that's going to interfere with this situation. So if you think that the little Syrians or
Nords, tall whites,
benevolent Pleiadians or Andromedans going to come by and save us from this, no, they're not. And this kind of goes in with a plan that they have. So if you don't have the nuclear bombs, rockets ready to go, it'd be too late. Even if we could see it now, it'd still be too late. The debris will still hit us, and it would be very devastating.
That is the thing you need to think about, the deflection. It's like we need some time. If they're going to
need months,
knock it
yes,
in any way or touch it, slow it down, speed it up, whatever it is, change its trajectory slightly, it'll make a huge difference by the time the Earth is spinning around the sun.
Even that now,
but it comes to the degree where we are, it doesn't need a lot. But if it's really close, you have to think that angle now changes,
and plus
dramatically.
The debris coming down.
And even if it doesn't hit us, if it comes right close enough, that's going to create a gravitational pull of its own. And there's got to be some chaos that's going to follow that. So absolutely,
there were
looking for that.
There were two movies. One had Bruce Willis in it called Armageddon.
Yep,
when an asteroid was going to hit the Earth and they had to fly out there. And there was another one which I forget the name of it. But anyway, it was dealing with a near Earth object coming into hitting the Earth. And then, strangely enough, Netflix just puts out a new movie on Netflix about this.
Don't look up.
Don't look up. Astronomers going to the president and saying, we have 100% chance of something hitting us, and they go, are you sure it's 100%? Maybe it's about 97%. Well, then that's not 100. Then we have time. We have time to, it's this
This is going to
crisis.
be us,
Right.
Yeah, we could be ancient history by the time they made the run.
It sounds like the mayor in that island in Jaws. It's supposed to be Cape Cod. Like, there's no shark. Open the beach.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like crisis management. Let's wait until the crisis happens, and then we'll come in and save the day. It's like, no, whatever happened to preparing for the worst, expecting the best, but preparing for the worst. And in that movie, it really shows the train of thought. Well, I want to get reelected in 4 years. Well, the scientists are saying, you're not going to be around in 4 years. You know what I'm saying? So even if they had 6 months to launch ICBMs at this thing, we'd probably still get a lot of debris from it because of the gravity of the Earth, the gravity of the moon.
Right.
And I remember back in the day watching this old cartoon called Thundar the Barbarian.
Oh, yeah.
And in the beginning of Thundar the Barbarian, there was a rogue planet that went between the Earth and the moon and tears the moon apart and starts humanity all over again. This is where Thundar comes out with this old technology that he keeps on his bracelet, and he goes around saving people and stuff. And you think, oh, that is so sci-fi, man. It's like so science fiction. That will never happen. And then you sit there and go, wait a minute. We've had a couple of near misses. And when you know that there's 40 guys out there, there should be 1,000, 10,000 looking for this. We are delusional. It's not, if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. When it's going to happen. And there was a show out not too long ago, 10 ways the Earth is going to be killed, 10 ways to kill the Earth. The first one, they started the 10th one, I think it was like locust or something. And they counted down to the first one. The first one was a meteorite hitting the Earth. That was their most concern about how the Earth was going to end, was a meteorite. And
been responsible for mass extinction events in the past.
Yeah.
You got the younger Dryas. You had the one that killed the
volcanoes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these things we're talking about, they happen, it's real stuff.
Yeah.
The moon itself is a little mysterious. Do you have any thoughts on the moon? I know we're coming to the end of our show. But
the moon, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things about the moon. A lot of people just don't want to talk about. I'll talk about them. First of all, the moon that we have today is not a moon. It's a planet. It was a full functioning planet, and it was brought here about 200,000 years ago. The moon that we had at that time was destroyed. So it was destroyed. So this moon was brought here and set in a perfect orbit, circular orbit. There's no moon in our solar system that has a circular orbit, my friends. They're all elliptical. Okay.
Right.
Even the Earth around the sun is an elliptical orbit.
It's like a perfect balance.
So it is a perfect circle. It varies within 3 inches of its rotation, because inside of it is a device that keeps it that perfect distance. It is the perfect distance to have an eclipse that blots out the same size as our sun at that distance. It's been mined for the last 300,000 years. There are domes on it.
Actually, yeah, I think there's something to that.
There's domes on the light side and on the dark side that are still being occupied. There were over 9 billion people on the surface and underneath by the time it got here. But in the trip here, it lost the sunlight, and so the plants and everything started to die. Now I thought this was very unique, because everybody that I know, the moonologists out there say, oh, nothing could ever grow on the moon. And then I was watching a documentary about our astronauts, and they were driving this little dune buggy around on the moon, and they were like, oh yeah, let's have some fun. And they were like driving around doing donuts and stuff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, one of the astronauts looks down and goes, oh my God. He says, there's soil below this ash. this plaster, and he pushes it away, and he's looking at it, and it looks like iron based, like red clay. And he goes, "Oh my God, I never thought there'd be soil on the moon." Like, why not? Because we were always told that the surface of the moon was bombarded with asteroids so much that it just became this
Why
ash.
just the moon, though? I mean, it's funny to even think about, right?
Yeah.
So why is the moon
Yeah.
so cratered, but the Earth isn't? Not that we don't have craters, but look at the freaking moon, right? Like,
Well,
it's like a punching bag, supposedly. I think they've also looked at the soil or whatever the contents of the moon dust were, and it's much older than the Earth.
Yes, it's far older than the Earth, and it was a protoplanet, meaning it was a full functioning planet as it was being brought here. But because of the lack of sunlight, it all started to decompose. It took 4 vessels, a little bit smaller than the Earth, not quite the Earth size, to bring it here. They brought it here because of the capacity of the people that it could hold inside and outside.
I have a
The
question.
ships that brought it. Okay.
Who brought it?
Who
brought it? Okay.
There was a planet in the Orion system that had Pleiadians on it. It was one of the planets that had Pleiadians on it, and it was the sun was going to erupt and die. So the Orions, the Hyperboreans, the Andromedans, other Pleiadians sent their ships there to that planet to rescue those people. So there were several billion people on the planet and their technology. So it's kind of like moving across country. You load up everything you want and leave the rest behind because you're not going to come back for it.
Right.
And that's what they did. Now, even with their vessels and bringing the moon, it still took them almost 1,000 years to get here. And in that time, many generations were being born, and that moon, our moon now, was dying. And so when they got here, they still wanted to use the moon as a wayfare system, so like a truck stop. And so they put it into this perfect orbit around the Earth. They set it up into a very similar orbit that the old moon was at, so that the tides would regulate themselves. So because of the moon, we have tides.
Right.
And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the weather systems we have today. We wouldn't have the tides we have today. We wouldn't have the Atlantic motions that we have today that we can navigate very easily with.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so what happens is the moon helped to sustain, solidify a living condition on the Earth. So when they got here, they thought, oh, the Earth, well, that's another story within itself. The way they found the Earth was through psychic ability. They used their top psychics to go out through the entire galaxy to find a planet that these people could survive on. So they did. And the psychics found Earth. And it was very primitive. We were very primitive back in those days. So they came in. Now, one of their smaller, lesser areas, which we understand today as Atlantis, was like a trickle-down scenario. When they came in, they occupied Mars, Melona, Earth, and Venus, because they had that many people. Now, Melona and Earth were side by side, and Mars was way out here, and Venus was here. Melona exploded because the oceans on Melona, they were drilling down to get geothermal energy, and the oceans rushed into that project, and it blew the planet wide open. 8 billion people died in 30 seconds or less.
Good God.
When it blew up, because of celestial mechanics, Mars came into and replaced that orbit. And so where the asteroid belt is today, Mars had to go through. And that's why the backside of Mars is plummeted, just like the moon, with a bunch of debris. The reason why our moon has so many craters on it is because that debris from Alona actually hit the moon, which saved the Earth.
See, that makes sense. And people don't talk about the moon, but there it is. It's right there, and you take it for granted. And
Jupiter and Saturn are the vacuums.
Nothing going on. Nothing to see here, folks.
Gas giant.
Yeah. Jupiter and Saturn are the gas giants, which actually are like the vacuum cleaners of our solar system. They go out there and they collect all this debris so it doesn't fall in.
Right.
Now, once in a while, like Halley's Comet and a few other things, that slips in. But really, they're collecting all this small debris. And there was a meteorite, I can't remember the name of it, or asteroid, that broke up and it fell into Jupiter. And we caught it all on satellites. We could see it and exploding in the atmosphere of Jupiter. And it goes, wow, so cool. Yeah, it's so cool because it didn't hit Earth. That's why it's so cool.
Yeah.
But the other thing is too is that
almost like Jupiter has that function, right? To kind of absorb those things or pull them away from us.
Yeah. Now in 2001 Space Odyssey, they all went out and reignited Jupiter, because Jupiter's really like a failed sun. So what I'm trying to say is the red spot on Jupiter disappeared for almost 6 months, a year. And everybody goes, oh, wow, this has never happened before. Saturn got really funky, and a bunch of ice on Mars started to evaporate. It's because our sun is heating up those planets just like it is the Earth. But because we have more water in our atmosphere, on the land, we notice it sooner. But all 9 planets are warming up, and they're changing. And the red spot that we thought could never disappear came back, and it was 2 or 3 of them, and then they re-amalgamated back into one again.
Wow!
And it's the sun that's doing it. And so everyone can talk about, well, gasoline and greenhouse gases and all that stuff. Yes, it's a contributing factor.
Exactly.
But 90% of it's coming from our sun. 90% of it. Yeah.
That's why
we're just in the way.
Right. That's what I mean. You have to look at it this way. That's why you have to go, when you go outside, you have to put on like sunscreen, sunblock. It's the UV rays from our sun that are they're damaging your skin.
Exactly.
It is the sun.
Yeah.
Just a comment on that moon thing. That NASA and the United States, we're with Russia, we're in this huge race in the 60s, and people often forget this. And so many millions of dollars are spent to get to the moon first. And it was thought that, whoever got to the moon first was going to be able to like control the whole planet. And once we got there, they got the fuck out of there. And that was it. And you never heard about it again. The Apollos were done, and it's pretty weird, right?
Then you have
we only got permission. We only got
mining were going on the moon, and here's a guy who saw rings on
Saturn.
No, not Saturn. Uranus, or no, it was Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Yeah, I'm having a mental block.
Yeah,
we saw that nobody saw it until like 6 months later with a space probe.
Indigo Swan. Ingo Swan. That's it. Yeah, he saw the rings around Jupiter before anyone else did.
Yeah.
Right, ice rings. They're not the rings.
The ice rings. Yeah.
But he also said that they've been mining on the moon.
They're mining on the moon.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
There was an atmosphere there, and things could.
They're mining on Mars. They're mining on Mars right now. There's some Beta Centurions on Mars that have a whole colony, and they're digging up Mars. We are the Johnny-come-latelys, but then again, we have been kept on the planet. We'll never have warp drive, and we'll never be telepathic. And those are the 2 things in the Schumer resonance, or 3 things that you need to go through space. We don't have them, and no one's talking about them. Now, we can play with our genetics all you want, but we'll still never be telepathic.
No.
You can talk about, no, they're downloading. We can only download. We can't I cannot talk to you telepathically right now. And we need that to go through space. Okay, imagine this. The Pleiadian star system is 350 light years away. 350 light years away. Radio frequency travels at the speed of light. Okay, it takes a radio frequency to get to Mars in 20 minutes. Okay, that's how far away that is. Let's talk 350 light years. That's 350 years to get there.
Right.
350 years to respawn back. That's
Moving
600. Right. That's 700. That's 700 years. The Earth will have changed to be 1 million years old. So you need warp drive, transwarp drive. So it takes a galaxy starship 50 minutes or an hour, let's say an hour, to fly from Earth to the Pleiades. Okay. But I can telepathically communicate in real time. There is no delay and there's no stopping it.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
It is.
So, right. So, okay, what do we have to do to get there? We have to be more spiritually evolved, that's for sure, and mentally evolved. We have to stop all the wars, get along with everybody, peace and harmony.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you,
terrible.
right. And we have to have an environment that has the Schumer resonance. The other thing is too, is that, we've got to understand that to go to our moon, we had to get permission. And NASA had to virtually, not bow down and kiss the ring, but virtually bow down to say, we're just doing this for exploration. When Neil Armstrong got off the ladder and said, one small step for man, when he turned around, there were 3 UFOs parked on the hill watching him. When Apollo 17 came back, home, he was followed by a 5-mile wide starship and two 2-mile wide starships on the edge of them. Followed Apollo 17 all the way home. Now, you say, oh, Dr. Lynch, you're crazy. Yeah, I would be, except for a little known agency called NASA. And NASA has a SOHO satellite. And you can look at our sun. And guess what's around our sun? The same ships that brought the moon here. And they've been here for 200,000 years.
How do you know that number, 200,000?
Oh, to say it's a piece of information. But if you go back in the human DNA, after the Anunnaki came, go back, that was 400,000 years ago, half that time. They gave us the right DNA. They fused one of our genes together. So we have less genes than a chimpanzee. So Darwin got it all wrong.
Right.
We have less genes, but we are far more capable of working with what we've got. And that was the leftover. The Anunnaki got us started, but then we had to be refined. We were changed again. And then that's how we got to where we are today.
We are probably just a work in progress.
It's
I mean, you look
yes, we are.
Thinking about it again.
Cattle mutilation.
We are.
Animal mutilation.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah, Linda Moulton Howe cut her teeth on cattle mutilations.
Yes.
Why do you need cattle mutilations? One is to check the food supply, whether it's contaminated or not. We should do this. The FDA should be doing that all the time.
We were just talking about it.
We literally were talking about this last week. We were watching
Joshua Dixon in our conversations too. So everything he's saying, we were just talking about.
We were saying, maybe it has
two,
to do with the food supply.
Yep.
Like
yeah. And two is the Greys take a bath in blood plasma. That's how they get their food.
I've never heard that.
It's a bit vampiric.
You take a cow and dump up his blood. Yeah, you exsanguinate. The cattle exsanguinate. You take all the blood out. Mm-hmm. You take out a few parts that you want to clone or try to reproduce. You put it into a genetic harvest bank. They take the plasma out. They separate it from the blood, and the Greys take a bath in it. And they have to lie there for about 5-10 minutes, and they've eaten for a few days. And they can get up and go do whatever they want to do. And the tall Greys are the same. They get all their
They might feel like, in their perspective, they look hot after that. Like, just got a tuck,
No,
let me
tell you. Let me tell you another little. Let me tell you another little story. Yeah, there was this countess there was this countess in Europe that would take virgins.
Bathory.
Bathory, yeah.
Bathory, we know.
Yeah. Yeah, she'd kill them and she'd take a bath in their blood. Well, the acids actually do make your skin softer and nicer. I mean, Cleopatra took baths in goat's milk. I mean, real goat's milk to make her skin look softer.
People have time for that.
Yeah, if you get a black eye, if you get a black eye, put a steak on it.
Right.
And
that's
the
true.
acids will go in there and then they'll break up the blood clot. So there's a lot of craziness here. But if you have a species that's the only way it can get its nutrition, guess what they're going to do? Now, between 1972 and 1982, there were 100,000 cattle
mutilated.
Autopsy. Yeah, mutilated. 100,000.
Yeah.
That's 10,000 a year for 10 years. And it still goes on today.
It's just way too many. You can't hoax that. The surgical precision and in the photographs
and like you were saying, no blood.
And the blood completely gone. It's not humans, guys.
Now I can tell you there's a couple of skeptics out there that say, oh, the flies did it. The cattle will decompose and then it blows open, and then the flies come in and they eat all the blood. The blood coagulates and then they get all the blood, right? Nope. Well, that's amazing, because when you talk to Linda Bolton Howell and a few the others that are out there, and I've been there myself, and you see these cattle, there's no way in hell. I mean, excuse my language. There's no.
Oh, that's my worst word.
There's no. You get a
it's Thursday.
Veterinarian. You get a veterinarian out there, and they will tell you right off the bat, these organs. They'll go in there and they say these organs have no blood. It's been totally drained.
Right.
And you go, well, what can do that? Well, what can do that is you put two tubes right into the heart, and the heart just beats out all the blood.
And pumps the blood, yeah.
Pumps the blood out, yeah. So it's sanguinated. So they don't have to really work very hard. All they have to do is anesthetize the cow. And all they do with that is they say, go to sleep. And the cow just falls asleep.
Terrible.
Yeah, I've heard stories about them meditating.
And they do that with humans. During an abduction process, they get into your head and they go, you will feel no pain. You'll feel no pain. And then they go, okay. And then they relax.
It's awful.
Yeah, and then they say do it again, according to the studies in that book. And that's all the question.
I'm just going to tell you, if they do,
but I don't know. I don't know why some people would want to go back and have the same experiences, even if they maybe have an enhanced psychic ability or something like that. If they were tortured in some way, I don't think that
Ridley Stryber
would be
want
to go back to that. But you wonder. It's a big question.
We would love to have you back again.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm gonna watch the time with me because
that's okay. No. I just happened to look down and went,
another
wow.
show in after us, so we don't mind going late.
Yeah.
And this has been a lot of fun.
But
our
viewers, they're asking, all kinds of questions and things that you're saying. They're saying it's very true, and they love you. They said it's an interesting show. So
it sure is.
Great. Now I've sent you some photographs from the Soho satellite, the green sun.
Yes,
I sent you some. They were in your messenger. I'm sorry, I don't know if I sent it through the.
I don't have them.
Okay.
Yeah, Facebook. Yeah, they're in your messenger. So if you want to put those up, just to say that, oh, Dr. Lynch is not as crazy as he thinks. Now it says, I mean, they say. I got two more stories for you, and then we're done. I'm sorry, I just got.
No, it's fine.
One story is it takes them 1,000 years. 1,000 years to build a galaxy class ship. That's the size of the Earth. And the reason why it's that size is because it's critical mass. As soon as they get to critical mass, they get instant gravity. And the rest of it is just propulsion. Okay, and that's all electromagnetic based. It's electromagnetic based. Okay, that was the first one. And then the second one is they've never left the planet. They've been here for 200,000 plus years. And this is not our planet. If you think that this is your planet and you own a house and some acreage, wrong. They own this planet, the moon, Mars, Venus, lock, stock, and barrel. And don't anyone ever forget that.
And I gotta say, you know, some of this stuff sounds like really far out to other people sometimes, but when you look at some of the little steps leading up to it, like we were talking about the moon, and we go, like, why are there so many crazy? Why does nobody talk about the moon? Yeah, there's some reasons, you know, like there's more to it than you might think.
Exactly.
And what you're
let me just tell you. Let me just tell you a little.
You know, I can't.
Let me tell you a little story. Let me just tell you a little story about this. Her name is Crystal Jackson. Crystal Jackson, and she did a book on page like 36. Now she told me this in person, but I went and found the book and I read it, and it's exactly what she told me. Now I have two witnesses that were there that confirm it. Crystal Jackson was an artist for NASA down in Florida, Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy, and that she was at a pool party. One of the big NASA officials had a party, and they were all at the pool, and they were all drinking, you know, vodka martinis like in the old days, and they had, you know, 60s music on, and anyway, they're all like giggling and laughing and everything, and then she walks into a conversation that is being held by a couple of wives and a couple of NASA engineers. So she walks into this conversation and she goes, and they're talking, and so she's just listening. And they said, the guy who ran the NASA site, Cape Canaveral, said, yeah, we had to get permission to go into space. And she goes, what? I mean, she just kind of like sits here and goes, questions this. And he goes, yeah. He goes, yeah. NASA had to get permission to go to our own moon. Well, what we thought at the time in the 60s, that was our own moon. Now, we had done Gemini and Mercury projects, but Apollo had not quite got there. And we had to ask permission from the Pleiadians, and from the Andromedans, and probably somebody else in the chain of command, to go to our own moon. Now, we were the emperors of the world. We had won World War II. We were gone through Korea. We were now in Vietnam. And we were just the emperors of the world. And we had to get permission to go to our own moon. Now, none of this would make sense, even to the person who's in deep in this stuff, into the black projects. But anyway, so one day, Crystal Jackson was going to work. She was going to work. And her boss said, hey, tomorrow, stop by the donut shop and pick up a couple dozen donuts for the guys, you know, for everybody to eat, you know, for coffee break and stuff. And she goes, okay, sure. So he throws her a $10 bill and says, you know, go by the donut shop and get us some donuts. Okay. So the next morning she's driving into work, you know, Florida day, nice sunshine, bright, everything's normal, copacetic. She pulls into the donut shop, and then she gets out of the car, she walks in, the bell rings, you know, and she's looking at the donuts, and then all of a sudden she looks over to the side. All these NASA engineers are sitting there with blueprints, and they were unrolling these blueprints out. Now she thought, oh, they're just, you know, having a little conference, you know. But every time they rolled out the blueprints, this tall, blonde-headed guy, hair down to his shoulders, combed back, slicked back,
like a
got up, and he would walk from table to table. And he had a pencil, and he would click it, and he'd say, okay, this won't work. You have to change this. He'd go to another table. Oh, this won't work. You have to change that. You know, your exhaust system's wrong on this one. You know, change that. And he would scribble down on what they should change it as. Okay. So Crystal said, that's really strange. Maybe he's just a consultant. Maybe he's just some type of big muscular consultant. Anyway, so she didn't think about it. Well, a week later or so, she gets into work. Boss says, here's $10. Go pick up some donuts on your way into work tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. She goes, okay, well, this has been a couple of weeks. So she pulls into the donut shop, and all these NASA engineers are sitting there, you know, horn rimmed glasses and crew tops and white shirts. And they're sitting there with these blueprints. And this guy in this wool suit with a vest, you know, on a 90-degree day, gets up and walks from table to table. And so she gets into work and she says, oh, I think these guys are selling the Russian secrets or something, because they keep going to the donut shop and talking to this guy. I think he's a Russian. She tells her boss this. And her boss goes, oh, no, he's not Russian. He's just there to help us get to the moon and back.
Wow. You know,
now
I don't know stuff at all.
I got one last story to tell you. Okay, now that guy was a Pleiadian. Okay, got one last story to tell you.
I'm following you. Yep.
Howard Minger had a potluck dinner in 1957 at his dad's house one afternoon. Potluck dinner after church. Everyone goes and over to Howard's because he's seen a couple of UFOs, and he's kind of a cool guy to walk around with, you know. He's a pretty cool dude. So we're gonna go over and have a potluck dinner. So we'll just take a pot of green beans over, or a casserole, and sit around and let Howard talk about UFOs. Well, everything was fine until these 4 people showed up. And one of them said, I'm Commander Valiant Thor. And we've been here for a very long time. And we just want to tell you there's nothing to fear from us. Okay. And everyone goes, okay, this guy can claim whatever he wants. Well, the photographer there was taking photographs, and he felt like the guy could read his mind. This Valiant Thor could read his mind. And anyway, so there were several other people there. There was a guy from Africa. There was a guy from Spain. You know, Howard would pull in a lot of, you know, different people. But every time he went to that person and talked with them, he talked it into their dialect.
No,
that's interesting.
Right.
So he was reading their minds and talking in their dialect.
Wow.
Now he was not from the planet.
I think that's fascinating. Also, on the paranormal, I'm just going to say this real quick. I really like the work of Annabella Cardoso. I've brought her up on the show many times, who listens to like a radio station, shortwave radio, one channel, nothing on it, to have no false positives. And she gets these like big, long strings of sentences, but they're in Portuguese, which is her native language. Right. She's located in Spain. It's like they're talking to her. They're not spooky, just because that's what she knows. It seems that's the way they communicate. So that kind of goes with what you mentioned with the dialect.
On Amazon, I think it's on Amazon Prime. I could be wrong. It's either Hulu or Amazon Prime. Has what's called the Friendship Case. The Friendship Case. And it was about a group of extraterrestrials living underground in Italy, in an underground base. And they talked to them in Italian. And they actually needed supplies. And so they contacted this one individual who was kind of open to the idea. And they gave him money so that he would go get fruits and vegetables for them, because they were afraid of doing it themselves.
Wow.
He would load them up into his truck and drive to a certain point. And then he would get out of his truck, go have an espresso. And by the time he got back to his truck, let's say 15, 20 minutes, all of the fruits and vegetables were gone. And no one had been next to that truck. So they transported them right out of his truck to their base.
Yeah, nobody sees it because it doesn't work.
Nobody sees it. So back in the 50s and 60s,
yeah,
the only transporter we had was on Star Trek.
You're right.
But if you look at the friendship case, they had that technology way back then. And so when you're talking about thermonuclear bombs, you're not even in the same ballpark, man. That is like 5 minutes ago. These guys have technology, have tech that I can tell you several colonels have run around their bases and said, if we don't have alien tech, we can't get the superiority. We got to have alien tech.
There seems to be a big drive for that tech. And maybe they have some of it. I don't know. Can't say personally, but
I'm just telling you, there is a major difference between what they've got and what we've got.
Sure.
And what makes
the military, anyways, military is always like way ahead of what the consumer.
And what balances this whole equation out is human consciousness. It's the key to everything. Once we are self-aware, more self-aware, we are on the same level as them. I don't care what your tech is. Psychologically, conscious-wise, we're in the same level, and that's the equation. That's the equation that that balances the entire equation out. And I just want people to know that. That's why consciousness studies is so fascinating. Quantum is fascinating. Electrons are everything's fascinating. But at the same time, it's the consciousness that's the equilibrium across the whole universe, the whole spectrum. You know,
I agree. You know, we're just like you. We're always looking for the answers. We want to know how it all works. We want to know why a ghost is a ghost and that kind of thing, and how it can talk.
I want to tell you. I want to tell you. Okay, Adam Smith talked about this. Adam Smith. I don't have one in front of me, but Adam Smith says, "I find a pencil on the sidewalk. I find a pencil on the sidewalk. I pick it up and I look at that pencil. Now, the pencil has different parts. Each part had to have been specially made for this pencil. So there's metal, there's plastic, there's an eraser, there's lead, there's wood. Each thing there makes that pencil. So what I have to do with my reality, and this is a secret to the entire reality, is reverse engineer that pencil. If I can reverse engineer that pencil, that gives it a purpose and a reason. If I cannot reverse engineer it, then it's just junk.
Right. That's
it's just a piece of wood and lead.
Yeah.
On that note, where can people find you? What's the best way for people to get a hold of Dr. Michael?
I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube and I'm on Facebook. And I'm Michael Lynch on YouTube, I think it is, or Michael Lynch Ph.D. And I'm on Facebook under Michael Lynch. And you'll see my banner of Paranormal News in the background, and me looking very one-eyed at you.
Distinguished.
It's like I'm actually gagging my mouth at screaming at the ignorance of most people. But again, we've got to get out of the 20th century. We've got to get into the 21st century. That's a must. And everything you think, see, and do can be reverse engineered. And
absolutely.
That is how the paranormal world
in the background.
I have so many more things I want to get into with you, and I wrote down, and we have to have you back.
Absolutely.
And our audience just
You're welcome.
Anytime.
We will do this again. Because
like I said, I injured myself, and I missed the last time, but I'm trying to make it up this time. I got tons of more stuff. We can talk all night. I got footnotes, so I'm not lying to anybody.
We like a lot of things. As you can probably tell, we're really interested in a broad spectrum of topics. It's not just narrow-minded one thing that we're into. We like a lot of things. So because that's the only way we're ever going to figure it out. Figure everything out. So we will do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
I'd love to
thank you very much,
Joshua, Joanne, Rosie for joining us, Courtney,
Anne-Marie Young,
Angela. A lot of comments from Angela tonight, and Brenda, of course, all you guys. Thank
Rosie.
you so much for joining us. Without you guys, we wouldn't have a show. So we really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys Saturday with Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Bye.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.